Part 105. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1050. Latest website. Almi felt the hand on his waist with a smile on his face, but secretly murmured in his heart, "Isn't something wrong?" The two of them followed the housekeeper and walked all the way inside, passing through a bush. Suddenly there was an open space in front of them. There were more and more people in various costumes, standing or sitting in a lively atmosphere. The butler turned around and said, "Welcome you two to the dinner. I can only bring you here. I hope you have a good time tonight. There will be an event after dinner called Fate. You can participate." The housekeeper glanced at Almi after saying this, as if this activity was not very friendly to her. Riddle, Lu Feng was a little confused. He had never heard of the two words he said. They seemed to have invented them himself. He asked, "Can you explain them?" The housekeeper could see that Lu Feng didn't understand anything about this kind of dinner, so he coughed and said in a low voice, "At that time, some beauties will put their room key cards in the same box, and then return to their room. You can go participate in the event and win one at random." After the butler finished speaking, he turned away and left. Lu Feng was stunned on the spot, secretly shouting that he was having fun. Seeing him leave, Lu Feng hurriedly asked, "Where is the person in charge of the dinner party? This dinner is spontaneous. There is no specific person in charge. If you want to know anyone, just go find it yourself," the butler replied calmly. Almi had been listening carefully, but still didn't hear anything, so he asked, "What activities did he say there would be at night?" "Stab by chance," Lu Feng said casually. "What is the name of this event?" Almi asked with a bit of curiosity. "It seems quite fun." "I don't know, let's go in." Lu Feng began to regret bringing her to this place. There were many beauties saying hello all around, all kinds of foxes/rabbits/cats, it was dazzling to see. The weather was already quite hot, and these girls were dressed interestingly. Lu Feng and Ermai looked very conspicuous in their dinner party attires. "Ha ha ha ha, here I come." With a shout, a white man wearing only shorts jumped out of the grass. The girls at the scene screamed in fright, and someone pulled out a water gun from the side and started to fight. The white man accidentally glanced at Lu Feng and was stunned on the spot. He asked, "Mr. Lu from Jiafeng Group?" "Hello," Lu Feng nodded awkwardly. Hello, I'm watching the news and you're here." "I work in a software company and I admire your company's management style." The man was polite, but his outfit was a bit embarrassing. He also saw Lu Feng wearing appropriately. He said, "Today's dinner is a role play, what are you doing?" "It's my first time to participate." "I didn't know that you were acting." Lu Feng looked at him and asked. "I play the role of a gangster," he said quite proudly. "It's very similar." "It's very similar," Lu Feng nodded and said, "Where is everyone? Who will come tonight?" "There are a lot of people here, but I guess they are all dressed up. There are a lot of big shots who like to play. Why don't you go change your makeup too?" After the man finished speaking, he looked at Ermai next to Lu Feng and said, "I won't change, okay, just take a look. I'll give you a business card later, I'll host it when I have time. I know a very authentic huaxia restaurant." The man was very polite, and he was obviously a veteran in the business world, but the place we met was not quite right. Okay, Lu Feng said politely and walked inside. This manor is indeed not small. Thousands of people are scattered here without feeling crowded. In front of it is a 5-story building. There are 2 buildings. One is kitchen, logistics, etc. I heard that the other building has hundreds of rooms, which is enough for people to stay tonight. There was constant frolicking and lots of people playing in the water. In the leisure area in the distance, there were groups of people chatting. Some of these people not only wore masks, but also wore various makeup. You might not recognize someone you know if you meet them. Out. Lu Feng randomly found a seat to sit down and ordered some drinks and snacks. Maybe it was because the two of them were dressed too formally. In such a scene, there was a sense of contrast, like they were standing among a lot of sexy bitches in a bar. Like a businessman, there is an endless stream of beauties coming to say hello. On the contrary, no one harassed Almi, not because of the quality of these people, but just because of the people Lu Feng brought. Is that Lu Feng from GFN Group? Yes, let me tell you, this guy is making crazy money. Even my nanny has bought his products, and he goes to participate in some activities every now and then. He's like a maniac. That woman is his wife? Are you here to take care of your wife? And the dress is wrong. He doesn't think this is a serious dinner, right? Matador, don't you know a lot of people? Is it his wife? Everyone looked at a man with horns on his head. Not only did he have half a mask on his face, but he also wore heavy makeup. He looked very exaggerated. He wore a jacket on his upper body, but it could be seen from the skin on his neck. He must be quite young and has some wrinkles. Ah. Yes, he is Lu Feng, the Matador said perfunctorily. Matador, what's wrong with your voice? The person next to him clearly felt that something was wrong with him, and joked, we're not acquaintances, are we? Go up and say hello, and ask us to come over for a drink. No, my throat suddenly felt uncomfortable, cough, the Matador coughed twice hurriedly. One of the men stood up and walked towards Lu Feng. When he passed by a girl, he reached out and patted her. He walked up to Lu Feng and asked, is this Mr. Lu from GFN Group? Hello, Lu Feng raised his head and looked at the man with chicken feathers on his head and African tribal makeup in front of him. He was also startled and asked, what's the matter? There are a few friends over there who I'd like to meet. Can you go over and sit for a while? The man invited. Okay, I'm bored alone. It's my first time to participate in such an event. It's a joke. Lu Feng stood up with a smile and said to Almi, let's go over. Almi picked up her handbag and stood up. My lady, the man asked. No, this is Nokia Vice President Almi, Lu Feng introduced. Vice President of Marketing, Almi added. The head of the marketing department of any company is the core of the company, just like Zhu Lidong is to GFN Group. Hello, the man introduced politely, I am mainly engaged in OEM, as well as various raw materials/processing. This place does not seem to be suitable for such a formal introduction. The three of them laughed, walked over there, asked the waiter to order some drinks, and briefly introduced each other. They didn't mention the company, let alone their names. It was obvious that everyone still had some scruples in a place like this. Mr. Lu's direct sales is really good. He has left out most of the middlemen and kept all the profits in his own hands. If I have a chance, I still want to learn about this aspect of corporate structure from you. That's right, GFN still purchases goods from overseas. Have you ever thought about setting up a factory here? You don't need to invest too much. You can talk to us. We have all the standards. Just give us the design drawings. Savage, he assured with great confidence. I still believe you have this ability, but we plan to develop in multiple industries, not just home appliances, but also to enter mobile phone/landline phone/entertainment programs in the future. For diversified development, we can steal money wherever we make money. This is also the reason for contacting Almi, not to mention that we have known each other for a long time. Lu Feng drank 2 glasses of dark beer, unbuttoned his suit and started blowing. Why is GFN developing in a diversified way, using direct sales to reach thousands of households, and establishing a research and development base here to establish a complete foothold in Europe? It has already reached an in-depth cooperation with Nokia, and even accidentally mentioned it to AI during the happy chat. Ermai's different relationship aroused everyone's desire for gossip. Almi sometimes intervened and heard Lu Feng talking about his relationship with his father and Nokia. He sat there and took a sip from his wine glass without saying a word. She wanted to deny this binding, but now that she had something to ask for, she could only let him say it. In Europe, not Asia, Nokia still had a certain right to speak, and it couldn't scare many people, so she just didn't say anything. Everyone was chatting happily. The savage glanced at the side and asked, "Where is the matador?" "I don't know. I just said I was going to the bathroom, but I haven't come back yet. I feel that the Tauren is not simple. He knows everything. He is like a big boss. Forget it, leave him alone, it's getting late. Let's go eat first when it's dinner time. After dinner, we'll go our own way. I'm sorry, Mr. Liu, but I might have to excuse myself." Then savage he wanted to invite Lu Feng to play with him, but after taking a look at Ermai, he decided against it. Everyone stood up and walked slowly towards the restaurant. In their hearts, Lu Feng had already climbed up to the behemoth Nokia. Now he had the confidence to stay here even if he faced Siemens. What's more, his old employer was the Schroeder Group and was looking for him all over Europe. There is no second person with more confidence than him. If he becomes the son-in-law of Nokia, he will really go sideways. Everyone will flatter Lu Feng in their words. If there is any cooperation in the future, it only takes a little bit for them to reach a higher level in the business world. Lu Feng's pocket has been quietly stuffed with many business cards, so we can meet again in private. Entering the restaurant, everyone was just about to eat when the savage suddenly called out, "Matador, where have you been? Come on, let me introduce you to Mr. Liu." The savage chatted particularly well with the matador. He was afraid that he would not get Lu Feng's attention, so he hurriedly stepped forward and pulled him to introduce him to Lu Feng. "Hello." Lu Feng stretched out his hand towards him. This man had two horns fixed on his head, but his figure looked familiar. Lu Feng always felt that he had seen this man somewhere. "Hello," the matador said in his voice. Everyone present was stunned, feeling that something was not right. "Are you John?" Lu Feng guessed. "Ferrari," Lu Feng guessed again. "Sean." As soon as this name comes out, the Tauren becomes smart. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1051. Latest website. Lu Feng really didn't expect that a man in his 50s or 60s like Sean would do this kind of thing and even dress up as a matador with two horns on his head. The savage felt something was wrong. The two seemed to know each other. He smiled awkwardly and said, "You guys chat, I'm going to eat first. I'll come over and sit down later." Lu Feng held Sean's hand, looked at him and whispered, "Since you know about this kind of event, why don't you tell me in advance? Look, I'm here dressed up today." Sean glanced at Almi, stretched out his hand to pull Lu Feng aside, and whispered, "This is a makeup party, don't expose yourself blindly. I haven't participated in it before, but this is the first time." "I thought you knew well. Who is that?" "My girl, how are you? Are you excited?" Lu Feng asked him. Sean, who was also a serious person, completely took off his mask at this moment. He nodded with satisfaction and asked, "I haven't seen you bring me before. Where did we meet?" "She is the vice president of Nokia, and her father is the executive president of Nokia. Let me tell you, Nokia is having a hard time right now. It has been beaten so hard by Ericsson that it can't hold its head up, so they want to sell some equity in exchange for cash flow. They don't want to do it publicly. Almi has a good relationship with me and wants me to connect with the Schroeder Group," Lu Feng said in a low voice. "What?" Sean couldn't believe his ears. Nokia was going to sell its shares? They've come out of the worst of it and are now selling equity. How is that possible? Don't be deceived. Nokia's financial situation is still fine now, Sean vowed. They are indeed fine, but if they want to expand, they need funds. The competition with Ericsson has just begun. Let me tell you, there is money in this matter, Lu Feng said seriously. Are you interested in this little money? Sean felt unreliable. It was as if GFN was about to expand and was just short of a few million, making people speechless. It's not because you like her, please help me. She's so pretty, right? Lu Feng raised his eyebrows at him and said with a smile. Okay, please help. Just don't get deceived. Also, don't call me by my name. I'm begging you. Sean made his request. This dinner will be official tonight. At a business dinner, everyone will dress in a fake way and say that they just came today. No problem, I just want to contact Herman through you. I always make an appointment when I call him. Lu Feng expressed his thoughts. Let's talk about it later. This is not the place to talk about things. Sean excused himself and walked inside. He turned around and said, don't follow me. You can play by yourself. Don't let anyone fool you. Seeing that he had finished chatting with Sean, Almi walked up and asked, do you know him? Sean, the CEO of the famous European company McKinsey, I just asked you, this matter is not easy to handle. If you want to get it done, you have to listen to me, you know, Lu Feng asked. Sean, Almi searched for this name in his mind, as if he had heard his father say it before, nodded and said, as long as it can be done, anything will do. It's best to do it quickly. The headquarters puts pressure on me. It's huge. If you want to go faster, you can't go through the normal process. Otherwise, you should know how cumbersome the negotiations between large companies are. So, this matter can't go through the normal process. Lu Feng glanced around and said, the two of them are obviously different beings here, and many people are looking towards them and whispering. Let's eat first. Lu Feng led Almi towards a dining table and said casually, I think your dad needs help with this matter. If you don't know Nokia in Europe, you must go to your dad. Verify. The two sat down and ordered some food. Ermi could feel that the method Lu Feng wanted to use was not very bright. First tell me what you can get. If the result is not so good, I won't be able to mobilize so many people to cooperate with you, Almi whispered. Siemens sales channels will not last long. I can give you up to a year, or even half a year. I have the ability to let you get channel sharing cooperation without spending a penny. Lu Feng said sincerely towards Almi, I also have my own goals, which will prompt us to reach a series of cooperation with Siemens. Tell me first, what are you going to do? Ermi had already sensed that Lu Feng just wanted to deceive. It's very simple. I will tell Siemens that you can reach a cooperation with it to make up for Siemens' shortcomings in the field of communications. The requirement is to exchange for their sales channels. They are very anxious about communications now, and I will put forward some small conditions in the middle. You can set up a large-scale R/U0026D center in Finland or Sweden. GFN will provide the money, you will provide the people, and the results will be shared by all three parties. Lu Feng gave his idea. Almi thought about the executability. It was absolutely impossible for Nokia to exchange and share core things with Siemens. Ericsson had already caused them a lot of headaches. If there was another Siemens, the European business community would probably stage a drama. 3/3 of the world. There is no way we can pass this kind of contract. You are not allowed to pass. I am responsible for the mediation. You sign the contract with me, and I sign the contract with Siemens. If you have any questions, you can come to me. It has nothing to do with you. I can fool someone with GFN's technology. It's been half a year, do you understand now? Lu Feng said to Ermi, so we need a relationship. You just tell the public that I am your fiancé, this relationship is enough. Almi took a look at the details and found that the feasibility was very high. Moreover, Nokia and Siemens did not sign any contract. If everything went through GFN, the risk would be very small. If something happened, it would also be GFN. The group is responsible. You can give it a try, Almi agreed. She really had no way out now. The air conditioning is on in the restaurant, and there are not many people eating there. Most of them are in rooms/private rooms. There are all kinds of beauties there, which are dazzling to see, including black/white/yellow. Almi also started to watch while eating, and whispered, "Want to play? I don't need to disturb you." "It's okay, I can't say it's disturbing, I just haven't seen this formation before," Lu Feng said with a smile. This is the life of rich people. They long to have women from all over the world, and they long to have materials and money from all over the world. I have also experienced these feastings. Almi looked like he had seen the world. "You're not talking about rich people, you're talking about capital." Lu Feng finished eating, lit a cigarette, took a sip and sighed, "It doesn't matter whether men or women are the same, the circle will allow people to get business information faster. You have to do something commonly known as going into the water. It doesn't matter whether you are rich or middle class, it's the same." The two of them were sitting there chatting, and everyone in the audience who came in stared at them. In less than half an hour, everyone in the audience knew that Mr. Lu from GFN Group and Almi from Nokia were also coming today. It has become the biggest topic at the scene, and this is what Lu Feng wants. The invitation says masked dinner in large letters, and there are even some instructions for the on-site activities. Be a gentleman on such occasions, and act like an old gangster on serious occasions. Only the contrast can make people remember you immediately. The live broadcast rang, "Dear guests, the dance is about to start. Please go to Area 3 to participate. After the dance, there will be a blind audition. All beauties who are planning to participate, please take your room cards." What a boring activity. If I had known this, I wouldn't have come. Lu Feng stretched and said, "Why don't you drink a little and go back early?" "Okay, let's find a quiet place." Almi stood up and waved to a sexy waiter, "Prepare some red wine and help us find a quiet place." "Okay, there are no people in Area 1 now, and there are trees and lawns. Come with me." The waiter led him towards Area 1. Arriving at the place, it was indeed very comfortable. Just a few minutes after sitting down, he suddenly heard a faint sound coming from the grass not far away. Lu Feng frowned slightly. Ermai also looked over there curiously. In the dimness, Lu Feng saw an acquaintance. "What the hell, savage?" Lu Feng shouted. The savage turned around and glanced at Lu Feng and Ermai. They were startled. He hurriedly took the grass skirt he had thrown aside and said awkwardly, "You two want this place? It's okay. I'll give it to Lu. Make room, sir." "No. I didn't mean that." Before Lu Feng could finish speaking, the savage had already dragged a girl away. Lu Feng and Almi looked at each other. Both of them were a little embarrassed. What a messy place this place was. Almi held a red wine glass in his hand and whispered, "I know why he likes to pretend to be a savage." "Pht, ha ha ha," Lu Feng couldn't help laughing. Without the disturbance of the savages, this area is quite quiet. Now is not the time to talk about any business, nor is it the time to talk about business. Flowers are in front of the moon, grapes are fine, and we talk about what we have experienced during this period and how much we miss you, although it is a bit fake. But the atmosphere is so heightened that you have to think about it even if you don't want to. After 5 bottles of red wine, both of them were feeling a little drunk. Lu Feng leaned on the wicker chair and looked at the face of the person in front of him, Xiaofei, and said, "You are really beautiful. You are also very handsome, especially after I left you and compared with other men, I realized that your abilities are not what other men can have. The most handsome thing about a man is not his appearance or muscles, but his intelligence." Ermai smiled slightly. After a while, he reached out and brushed his hair and asked, "Have you not talked about other women for so long?" "No, other women have no attraction to me." "Almi, you know, you are my god," Lu Feng said affectionately. Almi's face turned red with embarrassment, and he lowered his head and said, "I don't quite believe what you said." You know, a man has desires. If he loves a woman, he can restrain his desires. Ever since I left you, I have been in manual mode. Lu Feng twitched and said, look at me, come on, I've been here for several hours and I haven't even seen another woman. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1052. Latest website. It didn't matter whether Lu Feng had seen other women or not. What was important was to build a relationship between two people. Love can often be built. The activities outside have already begun. Rows of beauties stuffed their room cards into boxes. There were all kinds of whistles and screams, making the scene a bit hot and exciting. Lu Feng and Almi stood there and watched for a while. Almi looked a little drunk and leaned on Lu Feng's shoulder. It's so noisy, why don't we go back? Almi raised his head and said. Good. Lu Feng originally planned to say goodbye to Sean, but when he thought that he was excited now, he couldn't disturb him, so he put his arm around Almi's waist and headed towards the parking lot not far away. Suddenly I saw a savage on the road, and he seemed to be leaving too. You want to go back? Lu Feng asked him. The savage turned around and saw Lu Feng, stunned, and said, yes, Mr. Lu wants to go back too. I've had some drinks. I don't like this scene very much. Why don't you participate? Lu Feng asked. The savage said with an indifferent expression, it doesn't mean anything. I'd better go back to bed early. My wife is still waiting at home. These people really have no morals at all. What's the point of a woman? It has to be a family. I'll go back first. See you later. Lu Feng was amused by him, bowed his hands and walked towards the car, muttering to himself, these people are really interesting. They have flexible moral bottom lines. They can have no lower limit, and they can also raise their moral standards in an instant. In the car, the evening breeze made me feel particularly refreshed. Ermai leaned in Lu Feng's arms with a slightly drunken face. Lu Feng looked down at her and said, how about I go sit at your place for a while? The apartment I live in, not convenient. Everything is fine. Almi raised his head and looked at Lu Feng and asked, there won't be any problems this time, right? It will definitely not be like last time, Lu Feng said with a smile. I'm not asking about this, I'm asking about cooperation with Siemens. As long as you cooperate well, nothing will be a problem. I will try my best to use all my connections. What's more, this is not just your business. If it is done, it will also be good for us, Lu Feng told her very frankly. If she did these things just for Almi, she would never believe it. Instead, she would be suspicious of Lu Feng's purpose. It would be better to say it directly, and she would feel at ease. The two of them arrived at the door of a villa, and then went upstairs. As the motorcade left, the water in the swimming pool in the back garden had been heated. Almi stood by the swimming pool and watched Lu Feng stretch out his hand and said, come down. Take a shower. I can't swim. Lu Feng spread his hands and said, I don't have a swimsuit either. There is no need for a swimsuit. I have always felt that only by being close to nature wholeheartedly can we enjoy the beauty of nature. Almi took off her clothes, and the clear pool water reflected a shameful figure, and then she plunged into the pool. The human is as flexible as a white dolphin. Lu Feng stood by the swimming pool and looked at the beautiful scenery under the lights and stars. He finally understood the meaning of the rich man's desire for a swimming pool. Ermai swam over with the strength of the drink, raised her hand and poured water on Lu Feng, giggling and said, come down, don't be afraid, come down. I'll teach you. Lu Feng slowly got out of the swimming pool, and his whole body sank involuntarily. Ermai was wrapped around him like an elf. His delicate skin had a different touch in the water. In this drunken night, 40 In the swimming pool, Lu Feng learned to swim. When he raised his head, the sky was filled with stars. At this moment, the two of them were in perfect harmony. The next day, many media published the news in the morning paper that Lu Feng and Almi went to the Angels' banquet together, and even revealed the news that Almi was BeautifulFemale. Not only did she look like the original, she was also rumored to be Nokia's princess, has absolute control over Nokia. There have been rumors in the business circles that Lu Feng and Almi have been on the line, and this is not just the first time. The two have been flirting with each other in China. Until 10 o'clock in the morning, there are already rumors in the business world that GFN Group will reach a comprehensive strategic cooperation with Nokia, including the back of Schroeder Group. Schroeder has money and Nokia has technology. It is only a matter of time before it dominates the entire European communications industry. As soon as the news came out, Siemens, Schroeder Group, and Ericsson couldn't sit still and called each other to ask what happened. Nokia refused to answer calls for inquiries. Almi's father was almost busy calling her. It wasn't until 10:30 that Almi was woken up by the mobile phone on her bedside. He casually took the phone and answered it. Almi asked in a confused voice, "Who is it?" "Who am I? Your dad. What are you doing in the UK? Why are you getting involved with the Schroeder Group and the GFN Group?" The other end of the phone heard that she seemed to have just woken up, and asked, "That's all? You just woke up after it was a little late? How can you complete your work in this state?" Almi stood up when he heard his father's voice, leaned on the bed and said, "Dad, I haven't had time to tell you about this matter. Given the current market situation in the UK, it is impossible to invest a large amount of funds in the market. We have no chance of winning the confrontation, and the headquarters won't grant me funds, so there's nothing I can do. If the funds are approved, you won't need to go. Didn't I tell you when you left? If you can't do it, fire a group of people first, change the team, and then tell the headquarters that the new team can't complete it. For your work, push the responsibility down to the next level. I'll give you a few words and transfer you back directly." The father on the other end of the phone was a little dissatisfied with Almi. After making such a big noise, there will be no results at that time. The board of directors will definitely ask why. It took a lot of effort to climb up, but maybe it will fall down. Dad, don't worry too much. As you know, GFN Group is the Oriental company we cooperate with. Now he has a solution. Ermai simply told the whole story and made careful calculations with his father. It's him again. Let me tell you, it's best to stay away from this company. This company is engaged in the two fields of integrated circuits and communications. It is not a simple private company. It is said internationally that behind it is the instruction of the Chinese state. It's subsidized. The international situation is also unstable now, so it's better not to get involved. Dad worried. What's his background? Ermai said and glanced around him. Seeing Lu Feng still sleeping soundly, he said in a low voice, "It has nothing to do with us. It's just a use. This time we can achieve the same goal regarding the cooperation with Siemens. When you face Siemens on the phone, you should be a little more vague to facilitate my activities here." What kind of person is Almi's father? The moment Almi lowered his voice, he suddenly understood. He screamed in secret and finished. "I don't know if he can make money. Anyway, his daughter is now involved. How can Siemens, a company as big as Siemens and not a fool, cooperate with us and give us its sales channels? Don't let others deceive you." Dad warned, "Be careful in everything." "I understand. I'm not a 3-year-old. This is just an information gap. Sign the contract first." "How long will Siemens sales channels last?" "At least it will be a blow to Ericsson," Almi simply said after talking about the specific plan. This matter is nothing more than coaxing and deceiving. If something really happens, push it directly to the British branch. As long as it is achieved, even if it takes half a year, it will be a big mountain for Ericsson, and cooperation with Siemens will also greatly improve the brand power. The other end of the phone hesitated for dozens of seconds before agreeing. Lu Feng was taking the biggest risk in this matter, and the biggest benefit was with Nokia. It could be said that there was no harm at all. Then you should pay more attention. When signing the contract, you must find the best legal team and communicate in time if you have any problems, Dad warned on the phone. After hanging up the phone, Almi had a smile on his face and looked at Lu Feng beside him. He was simply an angel in his career. Whenever there was a problem, he would appear. Lu Feng opened his eyes slightly, saw a smile on Ermai's face, stretched out, held her in his arms, and asked, "When did you wake up?" "I just woke up, and looking at your face, I feel like my whole body is surrounded by happiness," Ermai said with her whole body pressed against Lu Feng. "Really? Are you so happy? Then let's upgrade the happiness." Lu Feng reached out and pressed her on the bed. At noon, the two of them had just gotten up to eat. Nokia took calls from several parties, saying on the phone that this matter is not a bad thing. "We support all good things, and Nokia will also cooperate with companies that are willing to cooperate. Create a beautiful world." Having said this is like saying nothing. John called Lu Feng almost all the time, but no one answered. Herman also felt something was wrong. If GFN was just a profitable direct selling company, it would be unattractive, and the money would surely be drained slowly. But Lu Feng has Nokia in his hands, which is not right. Now when it comes to communication/mobile phones, Nokia is the world leader. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng's car parked downstairs of the company. Before he could get out of the car, Manager Li ran out, opened the car door and said to Lu Feng, "Mr. Lu, Mr. John from Schroeder Investment Group is already here." "Waiting? Waiting? Why is he waiting for me?" Lu Feng was a little confused. It was no one's turn to be anxious, but it was not his turn. "There are rumors that we are going to acquire Nokia," Manager Li revealed something that dumbfounded Lu Feng. "What?" Lu Feng got out of the car and said with disbelief, "Good guy, the outside world really dares to spread the news that even if he wants to acquire it, Finland won't approve it. Even if Finland is willing, the EU will not agree. Now this matter is spreading like wildfire. The news coming out of Nokia headquarters, we don't know what's going on." The phone calls were all busy this morning, and even the British Ministry of Commerce called to ask Manager Li obviously didn't. This formation was frightening. "Why is it such a big fuss?" Lu Feng shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's an unexpected gain. Let's go up first." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1053. After going upstairs and entering the office, Lu Feng seemed particularly comfortable. He sat on the sofa and asked the clerk to make a pot of tea. He sat down and asked Manager Li who had called. Nowadays, everything is said outside, all kinds of rumors are flying around, and people from Siemens/Ericsson/Schroeder Group/Sean all called to inquire about the specific situation. "What did you say to them?" Lu Feng asked. "I don't know anything. I can't explain why." "John is still waiting in the living room," Manager Li asked. "How about calling him over?" "Call him over," Lu Feng thought for a moment and then ordered. A few minutes later, John opened the door and walked in. When he saw Lu Feng sitting there, he was stunned and said, "It seems that Mr. Lu had a lot of fun at the Angels banquet last night. He's just here now company." Lu Feng didn't get up when he saw him coming in. He pointed to the sofa next to him and said, "You've been drinking and delaying things. Sit down quickly. Do you have anything to do with me? Just call me if you need anything. Why bother running there?" John snorted inwardly when he heard what he said. They were still surrounding him some time ago, but it had only been one night, and he didn't even bother to stand when he came in. He didn't care about this. John pondered for a moment and asked, There are rumors that there is a possibility of strengthening cooperation between you and Nokia. The board of directors doesn't know about this. Some people even say that GFN will become a director of Nokia. Game. Don't listen to the nonsense outside. If something like this happens, the board of directors will definitely need to meet. However, I do get close to the vice president of Nokia. Lu Feng picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. How close? John inquired. -18 centimeters. Ahem. John coughed twice and put down the teacup in his hand. He asked a question unnecessarily and said, there are only a few large companies in Europe. You can count them on two hands. You and Nokia, you can go as close as possible, but don't bring Schroders with you. There are rumors that we are in contact with Nokia. The key is, I called the CEO of Nokia to ask, and he spoke vaguely, as if he was trying to hide it. Similar. I can't control what other people say, but it really has nothing to do with you. Let me tell you the truth today. Lu Feng stared at John and said, I don't care about GFN's current equity structure. I won't stay here for long. In a few years, the company will be able to run on its own, and I will go to Europe. You said that I would marry the vice president of Nokia, buy some equity, make some investments, etc., and my life would be considered comfortable. Oh, what are you talking about? John became anxious and said to Lu Feng, you founded GFN and it will always be your company. Don't think so much. As for who you are with personally, we have no control over that. Mr. Lu, don't think too much. We have always felt that GFN Group is only GFN Group if you are there, but the current rumors have made Schroeder Group very passive. It's not that many things. If there is any progress, I will definitely tell the board of directors as soon as possible. Don't worry, Lu Feng said to John, the most important thing now is to send the funds out. Harry and Breeze's secretary come every other day. You call me, you make a lot of money, but you can't afford to go to such trouble. John nodded. He was also worried about this matter, but facing Siemens, he had nothing to do. He said, then I'll go back and tell the headquarters that you'd better not cause so many troubles. You can do whatever you want in private. After all, the storm in the city is not good. Also, don't think too much. Your relationship with GFN is like the West's relationship with Jerusalem. You are too flattering, Lu Feng said with a smile. John stood up and said a few polite words. First, he touched Lu Feng's bottom, but Lu Feng told him that he only did that much last night and nothing else. After sending John away, Lu Feng sat there lighting a cigarette and thinking. Now he was not in a hurry. Such a big bait had been thrown out. Now it was Herman's turn to be anxious. After connecting to 4 or 5 phone calls, including news media and some communication industry companies, Lu Feng expressed on the phone that he had a close relationship with Nokia and that he could promote some cooperation with Nokia or even acquire Nokia. After the contents of these phone calls were spread, Nokia was completely thrown into the spotlight. Countless calls were made to inquire about their operating conditions and financial status. A sensational headline appeared in the newspaper at noon. Nokia suffered a financial deficit due to the siege of Ericsson. Seriously, Mr. Dongfang Lu, who has secretly searched for the sponsor and made tens of billions, is eager to give it a try. As soon as the news came out, let alone the UK, there was an uproar around the world. Wall Street immediately focused on the news and called Nokia's headquarters, offering to invest us $2 billion to acquire 100% of the equity in its communications/mobile phone/and multiple R/U0026D centers. There was a curse on the other end of the phone. With calls from all over the world willing to pay a high price for the company, Nokia couldn't hold it anymore. This was no longer something Almi's father could decide. Within a few hours, more than 50 countries around the world extended an olive branch and were willing to take Nokia into their arms. Finland's Ministry of Commerce was the first to stand up and issue a statement. Nokia's operating conditions were good and there was no situation of selling it to external parties. Immediately afterwards, Nokia also stood up and angrily denounced the rumor mongers, scolding Lu Feng by name. Everyone was confused. They didn't know whether to sell or not to sell. However, everyone does not believe the statements made by Nokia and the Finnish Ministry of Commerce. This is the case internationally. When some news comes out, it means that the company has problems. It spends a lot of time refuting the rumors, and then sells it after a year and a half. Things in the world are like this. You can do it quietly, but you must not shout loudly. The louder you shout, it means that this thing must not be done. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the GFN branch building was surrounded by reporters. Almi also called Lu Feng and told him to come out and clarify, otherwise all subsequent cooperation would be cancelled. Everyone on earth knows what happened now. As if they really want to sell it. A marketing vice president of Ericsson also made some intriguing remarks in an interview in the afternoon. He said that Nokia was already weak after being split up a few years ago. Now it is no match for Ericsson in the European market. In the Asian market, it is like Sony. Companies are suppressed. In the United States, there are companies like Motorola, which have little room for survival. In the lobby on the first floor, Lu Feng stood in a suit and looked at the guns and cannons in front of him, and the sound of snapping photos could not be heard. Where did the news that Nokia will be sold come from? Did Almi tell you? Did you stay at Almi's villa last night? What happened? Can you tell me more specifically? The president of Nokia's marketing department said to reporters that you are completely a villain who is running around and I can't believe every word you say. What's your response to this? Nokia is going to sue you. What do you want to say? Is GFN Group involved in pyramid schemes? Can you give a positive response to the outside world's suspicions about GFN Group's business model? All kinds of news came like cannonballs, making the ears of those who heard it hurt. There was no unnecessary expression on Lu Feng's face. He coughed lightly and said, I would like to sincerely apologize to the Nokia Group here. I was talking nonsense after drinking. I didn't expect it to have such a big impact. I'm sorry. GFN Group has always been a close partner of Nokia. We have a presence in many industries such as home appliances/communications/integrated circuits. I hope everyone will not continue to spread rumors. GFN Group we have always been helping to develop and support the local area. There have been rumors outside that GFN is leaving, but GFN will not leave. GFN's hundreds of thousands of brothers and sisters are here, and I am here. No matter what kind of problems he faced, in the interview, Lu Feng first apologized, and then expressed his sincerity to the United Kingdom. He repeatedly stated that the money would be spent in London, and he boasted about any construction project that would create tens of thousands of jobs. After saying this, Lu Feng turned around and went back. The security guard maintained order at the scene and allowed everyone to leave in an orderly manner. In the evening, Lu Feng's apology video was played on the TV station. People in the business community were already a little confused. They didn't know what was going on with Nokia now. It was not a listed company, so there was no need to release financial data to the outside world. It relied purely on private relationships. Looking around, the overall business is running well. Everyone knows that Ericsson cannot beat Ericsson in the European market. Almi had already rushed to Lu Feng's company, opened the company door, and saw Lu Feng frowning and said, "How did this happen? I was scolded by my dad on the phone, and the board of directors also an emergency meeting was held. Why are you so anxious? We just want to make some noise. It's just that the noise is a bit bigger this time, but it also shows Nokia's global influence from the side." Lu Feng pointed to the chair in front of her for her to sit on, and continued said, "This matter is already half done, you just need to wait." Half of it? Ermai was a little confused. How could it be half of it? Right. How can it be half? Siemens hasn't contacted me yet, Almi said, dissatisfied. Look, this is because you are shallow. This matter cannot be discussed. What is important is Chinese Taoism. Taoism is natural. When there is one, it will turn two, and the gears of fate have begun to turn. Lu Feng glanced at the time and said, let's have a meal together. Almi didn't understand, but Lu Feng's confident look didn't seem to be fake. It was not convenient for her to press too hard, so she nodded and agreed. As for why the results were half achieved, Lu Feng didn't know. Anyway, the news has spread now. If Siemens really has an idea, they will definitely contact him continuously and contact him through various means. The more urgent they are, the easier it will be to talk. Lu Feng needs to slow down now and slowly find a few people to chat with. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1054. Latest website. In the Western restaurant, Inland Feng and Almi were eating slowly. Most of the companies in the outside world had given up on Nokia. Even if it was really sold, these companies would not be able to turn to it. Siemens' marketing department contacted Nokia. The people below had no idea about these things, and they submitted one analysis report after another. Herman was sitting in his seat and looking at the report in front of him. The office door was pushed open and several heads of the marketing department walked in. Herman looked at them and said, everyone, please sit down. President, I think this matter is a mistake. All the information comes from Jiafeng's Lu Feng himself. From all aspects of Nokia, this matter is not credible, a man in his 50s said. The man said, although there are constant rumors outside, I contacted a small shareholder who is a member of Nokia's board of directors. They have not held an internal board meeting, another person said. There was a lot of talk at the scene, and all signs showed that Nokia had no intention of selling it, and everyone was living a healthy life. Herman didn't think so. He sat down with a cigar, looked at everyone and asked, then why doesn't Nokia's CEO face the problem head on? He was vague on the phone before, and he didn't stand up until the matter got big. Clarify, and Lu Feng is very close to Almi, let's analyze his character. Is he the kind of person who is willing to apologize easily? The people present looked at each other. If you analyze human nature, you don't know. Let me tell you one more thing. Tomorrow Siemens will face market pressure and it is expected that its finances will be in trouble 1 year later. Will it seek financial support from the outside world? Do you think the top management will publicize it? Herman asked. After everyone heard this analysis, they seemed to understand that they must not publicize it, otherwise the entire company would lose heart in an instant, which would only lead to an even more uncontrollable situation for the company. Are you saying that their top management now has this intention, and that Lu Feng's apology is the result of pressure from Nokia? Yes, that's what I think. It's okay if Lu Feng doesn't apologize, but it's not right for him to stand up and apologize. We still need to pay close attention to this matter. It's best to sit down and talk with Lu Feng. If we being able to directly eat Nokia, even if it is only part of it, will be a huge boost to the development of our communication/mobile phones. Herman expressed his thoughts directly. The other executives stopped talking. The decisive trends of a company of this level are extremely confidential. Some of them are even contacted privately and will not be announced until the second day after the acquisition is completed. This is also because they are afraid that some companies will interfere with it. If this is the case, this Lu Feng has become an important person. A white man in his 60s looked around and continued, didn't you two meet in London some time ago? We happened to have a phone call. Thing. Herman was quite embarrassed when he heard this. Previously, Lu Feng had made an appointment to call him but he didn't answer the call. Now, he wanted to contact him but couldn't. So everyone should pay attention to this matter. Pay more attention to relevant news. You can also go and talk to some consulting companies. That's it for today. Herman did not answer the question and directly issued an eviction order. After everyone left, Herman called his assistant and asked him to continue making appointments for Lu Feng. Half of London is talking about Lu Feng's origin. This man from the East has attracted too many people's attention. Coupled with Almi's appearance, it is like a twister that detonates explosives. I don't know how many people are jealous behind the scenes. With half a month passed by in a flash. As the public opinion began to calm down, people's attention was occupied by daily news. In the past half month, Sean came several times, invited Lu Feng to dinner several times, and asked insinuating questions. Regarding the Nokia matter, he himself said that he was asking for Ericsson, but Lu Feng didn't think so. After asking again and again, Lu Feng became impatient and told him that he was just being careless and had already apologized. He couldn't embarrass his future father-in-law. However, he drank too much that day and seemed to have spilled the beans. Nokia just mortgaged part of its equity and didn't want the outside world to speculate. It just wanted to make some money quietly through its own hands. After Sean went back, he was tossing about and couldn't sleep. For a moment, he couldn't figure out which of Lu Feng's sentences were true and which were false. Judging from various sources, Nokia was indeed short of money. If it could get a large amount of money, invest it in brand building / sales channels. In other aspects, they can really survive. With Nokia's current situation, the possibility of high-level gambling is very high. From the outside world, being suppressed by Ericsson now means a slow death. Thinking of this, Sean immediately got up and wrote an email and sent it directly to Herman. After this period of development, GFN Group's business in the UK has reached its peak. Unlike other businesses, when the business reaches its peak, there will be a retention effect, and a considerable number of customers will be practical for a long time. GFN's products are different. They are basically the above is a one-time use. When the business peak has passed, what will soon be ushered in is a cliff-like decline in sales. Now GFN has basically closed the loan link completely. Due to too many agents, sales have declined. Many teams have begun to stop making money, and some people have started to make trouble. This bomb is bound to explode sooner or later. In the conference room, the situation in the company was basically introduced. Lu Feng suggested that the method is to increase the formation activities, cheer each other up, and at the same time reduce the recruitment of new members. There are almost very few new members. According to GFN's activity statistics list, a total of 6 million people have participated in GFN's activities in the past 6 months, with total agents of 2.9 million and existing agents of 1.8 million. According to the population structure of the UK, GFN Group has basically screened all the people between the ages of 35 and 55, and has one set of products per capita. There are too many liars and not enough fools. Lu Feng looked at the data on the folder, lit a cigarette and muttered, "It's better to go to a country with a big humming population and do this to make money quickly, and get hundreds of apartments quietly. Okay, let's break up the meeting." Lu Feng closed the folder and looked at Manager Li and said, "Please come to my office." Inside the office, Manager Li closed the door, looked at Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, many recent lawsuits have been settled. We lost 3 of them, with a total compensation of £10 million. Moreover, our management in the court has not improved. Spend less money and there is not much potential left in the market." Lu Feng raised his head and looked at him. Manager Li's words were very clear. This place was running out of money. If he didn't leave, he wouldn't be able to take any money with him. "How is the situation in other branches?" Lu Feng sat down and asked. "France is the most developed, followed by Germany, but they are not as good as here. Those countries have passed the gas and are trying to contain us in all aspects. In yesterday's conference call, the French branch was able to transfer $80 million this week. Several other branches are still thinking of ways, and the biggest influence is Siemens manager Li replied. Lu Feng took out a folder in front of him and looked through it again. He raised his head and asked, "It shouldn't be a problem to return $1 billion to the headquarters, right?" Manager Li looked embarrassed when he heard this. There are too many places to spend money. These people just caught them in a gray industry area. In addition, they are foreign companies, which are much more shameful than local companies. They are always asking for money. To put it bluntly, the profit of the entire enterprise can be said to be 1 out of 10. Well. Lu Feng sighed. It was already May. It seemed that he had to seize the time to escape. He sat there and thought for a while and said, "Since pigs can no longer make money, we can only kill pigs and let the people below compile a sales secret for me, and then ask all the lecturers to learn it for me within a week, and then sell courses in major teams. As long as you take our courses, it is trivial to earn hundreds of thousands of pounds a month. Do you understand?" Manager Li answered clearly that he would set up relevant departments to implement this matter. At the same time, he also understood that this game would eventually become unplayable. The purpose of selling courses now was just to make up for the efforts of some outsiders to encroach on Jia Feng's profits. It's just a means to squeeze out the last bit of oil and water. "Have you finished the company you were asked to form some time ago?" Lu Feng asked. In that folder, Manager Li pointed to an orange folder on the table. "Okay, you go about your business. We need to hurry up on selling courses, publicize them internally, and set a level in terms of pricing, such as 1, 2, or 3 levels. It's best to target those who have made money from us. Let them spit it out," Lu Feng said very directly. "I see. Get out." Lu Feng bowed his hands and signaled that he could leave. There was a small calendar on the table. It was already May 18. Lu Feng silently calculated in his mind that the funds must be transferred within a month, otherwise the trip would be in vain. After sitting in his seat and pondering for a long time, and smoking several cigarettes, Almi still believed in Lu Feng. There were fewer rumors from the outside world, but the inquiries between big companies never stopped. Siemens is too covetous of Nokia. As long as they swallow Nokia, their strength in communications will definitely grow rapidly. Lu Feng seemed to have figured out something, so he picked up the phone and prepared to call Herman. After pressing a few numbers, he hesitated, put the phone down again, and relayed Sean's call. After the call was connected, Lu Feng said to the phone, "I'm Lu Feng. Are you in London now? Let's have dinner together tonight." Sean on the other end of the phone was a little surprised at Lu Feng's invitation. Now Lu Feng is definitely among the top people in the European business community, at least that's what the outside world thinks, and the relationship between the two has also faded during this time. Phew. "I'm in London, just having a meal." Sean wanted to find out something. "I've been feeling upset lately, and I want to talk to you. Of course, it's not just about eating. I'm holding something back in my heart. I'm feeling quite uncomfortable. There hasn't been much progress lately. Can we talk?" Lu Feng said to him. The phone said. "Is it related to Ami?" Sean asked further. Lu Feng saw that he was looking unfinished and said directly, "It has something to do with Nokia, so you can decide whether to eat or not." "Eat?" Sean suddenly became energetic. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1055. Latest website. Sean has been collecting information about Nokia a lot during this time, and privately inquired that Lu Feng has also been idle during this time. He has found several powerful companies, as if he really wants to help Nokia. In the evening, Sean was already waiting at the door of the Western restaurant. Jia Feng's business in Europe was almost as busy as what he should do as a consultant. What's more, he also knew that Jiafeng's business had reached its peak. Compared to before, he is really serious now. If this matter is brokered, whether it is legal consultant/fund guarantee or risk control, as long as it is mixed in, it will be a big sum. Money. After waiting for 10 minutes, an Audi parked in front of the restaurant. The co-pilot's bodyguard got out of the car and opened the backseat door. Lu Feng got out of the car, looked at Sean in front of him, smiled on his face, and raised his hand. He patted Sean on the shoulder and said politely, "Why are you still standing at the door waiting?" "I arrived a little early." "It's okay," Sean said very politely, "the box is ready, let's go up." The two of them walked inside and entered the box under the leadership of a white foreman. Lu Feng took off his suit and put it aside. He sat down and said casually, "You and I haven't seen each other for a while." "Recently? I'm really busy. I don't know what I'm busy with all day long, and I feel dizzy." "You are no better now than you were when you first came here at the beginning of the year. I have to sigh that time flies by so fast. Half a year has passed by in a flash. I didn't expect Jiafeng to develop so quickly here." Sean smacked his lips with some aftertaste and said, "Now that I think about it, I was wrong at first. Isn't this normal? There are too many people who have made mistakes along the way." As Lu Feng spoke, the waiter in front of him poured tea and laid out hot towels. Lu Feng raised his head and looked at him and said, "I have met many people here in the past 6 months. When Kevin introduced you before, he said that you were retired. From what I have learned during this period, you are not just retired, right?" Sean was stunned when he heard this, laughed and said, "I opened a consulting company, helping people build corporate structures, do market research and so on. Compared with you, it's not worth mentioning, so I didn't say anything at the time. It's not been easy these past 6 months, we are definitely friends, right?" "Friends, of course they are friends," Lu Feng looked at him and said with a smile. Several waiters poured wine worth thousands of dollars into the wine dispenser, put a little bit into everyone's goblet, and stood nearby, ready to refill the wine at any time. Sean raised his head and looked at a few people and said, "You go out, we will pour the wine ourselves." After the waiters left, Sean cut off a piece of steak, took a bite and said to Lu Feng, "Since we are all old friends, let's talk openly. Is the Nokia thing true? Or are you?" "A deliberate move." "It's true, but it's not true." Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and took a sip. He couldn't taste the uniqueness of such an expensive red wine, and said to Sean, "Nokia does want to raise some funds from the market, but this sometimes, I don't want to shake the management's confidence, so I just do it quietly, but I think it can be cannibalized." "Cannibalizing?" Sean said with some confusion, "I want to hear it." "Simple, I recently checked Nokia's market share in the European market. In terms of communication infrastructure, they account for about 30% of the market. With 2G signal transmission patented technology, there is still a gap between them and Ericsson, not to mention Sony. It is basically impossible for such a company to make further efforts, and China should have the highest market share. So what? So, they will sell themselves off little by little. Now the idea of the entire senior management is to raise some money, completely increase the market share, and at least make achievements in mobile phones. Through some of my own research, I found that I am unable to return God, it's just a matter of dying early and dying late. From my business point of view, Nokia will disappear in the next century," Lu Feng said to Sean very confidently. He also knew a lot about some basic information about Nokia. Many people were not optimistic about this company since it was separated, and now it is struggling. The situation Lu Feng mentioned is very likely to happen. "How much money are they trying to raise?" Sean asked. "I didn't say anything, I just wanted to mortgage the stocks. Because the prices at the bank are relatively low, so part of it is mortgaged to the bank, and part of it is sought for high returns among the private sector, or for other resource swaps. When I was chatting with Almi, they said, it is best to have sales channel resources. They are anxious about this now. Lu Feng ate a piece of steak as he spoke. Sean's mind was spinning rapidly, and he was silent for a while before saying, Herman contacted you, why didn't you answer the phone? Siemens is very interested in Nokia, and he is also taking care of Jiafeng's capital and foreign exchange issues. I don't like that person. To be honest, I have a personality. Lu Feng put down the knife and fork in his hand and said angrily, damn, when I called him to contact him, I didn't even call him. You didn't even answer the phone, but now you think of me? Aren't you just strangling me by the neck and not letting the funds go out? I made it clear at the meeting with the board of directors a few days ago that funds from various countries will not go out for the time being. There are restrictions in Africa. It doesn't matter if Europe restricts another batch of funds. Lu Feng's voice was filled with emotion, giving people the feeling of a broken jar. Business matters can't be acted on your own initiative. Besides, if your funds don't go out, they will be emptied by those people here sooner or later. Sean continued to inquire. I'm not a fool. I have already held an internal meeting to establish a company and brand. VCD is Jiafeng's exclusive global patent. I can't sell anything else to those companies. I will build a local factory and sell it. VCD, and by the way, we will strengthen cooperation with Nokia to build a large R/U0026D center. Lu Feng said to Sean, I don't believe they will still come to trouble me, not to mention, there will be Nokia and Shi logo behind me at that time. The two major consortiums are the German group. Lu Feng's words were very clear and straightforward. Even for people like Sean, they were a bit too straightforward, just like the vernacular spoken in the vegetable market. After thinking about it for a moment, he thought about Lu Feng and Nokia/Shlo. The relationship between Germany and the group can indeed do it. Perhaps this was why Lu Feng didn't answer Herman's call. Even so, Jiafeng Group's global capital investment is too scattered. As I said before, there is no need to be too emotional in business behavior. Come on, let me toast you, Sean said and picked up the wine glass. He said, I still think it's better to have a chat with Siemens. This will be good for Nokia's development and good for you. I'll help you connect the dots. Lu Feng drank a glass and waved his hands, saying, I don't want to see that person. Then can you find a second terminal channel that is better than Siemens? Looking for terminal retailers? They have no interest in Nokia's technology at all. They are in retail and will not get involved in the technology industry, Sean reminded. Lu Feng looked a little unhappy. He poured himself half a glass of red wine and drank it all in one gulp. It made Sean feel as if he had just come into contact with companies like Walmart and had hit a wall in the past few days. I won't hide it from you. I contacted Almi a few days ago and she told me that you will be responsible for all this matter. Sean was a little confused and asked, why? Why should Nokia's affairs be left to you? Will you do it? Lu Feng had long thought that these people would skip him as an intermediary and go directly to Almi. During this period, he had always told Almi not to agree when he received the call, otherwise he would be completely disappointed this time. If it's convenient for people from Nokia to come forward, wouldn't it be enough to just make it public? They came to me just to keep it secret. Lu Feng looked at Sean and said. Wouldn't it be better to sign a confidentiality agreement? Sean still didn't understand and always felt that this matter was a trap. There are people over there who are worried. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. I really can't find another company. You are here to intercede for Herman. There is no way I can talk to him, Lu Feng said directly. Okay, I didn't say anything else and just kept eating. Sean murmured to himself as he ate. Judging from the business risks, what Lu Feng did was completely inconsistent with business rules and was confusing. If he did it like this, there might be some risks involved, but the three Nokia, the words are so attractive. What if? Sean forgot a warning he had learned from being in business all the time. As long as he thought about what might happen, something would definitely happen. Seeing that he was a little excited, Sean stopped talking and talked about other things. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, the two of them had become very close. I still have to thank Sean for his help in the past 6 months. The two of them were polite to each other. After going downstairs, Sean personally put Lu Feng into the car. He looked at Lu Feng and asked, "Are you happy to eat with me?" "I'm absolutely happy. I'm telling you, you've been the most irritated with me for so long since I've been in Europe. I won't say any more and go back first. I have a morning meeting tomorrow." Lu Feng bowed to him. "How about continuing tomorrow night? I'll find you 2 beauties, and let's change places." Sean grinned at Lu Feng and said, "I told you, Paris is a romantic place, and London is a place for romance. Don't get there in one day. If you think about work at night, just play when it's time to go back and get some rest early." He didn't wait for Lu Feng to agree, stood up straight, waved to the driver, and the car drove away. Sean turned around and got in the car and called Herman directly. He didn't care whether Herman was asleep or not. After the call was connected, Sean got straight to the point and said, "From what I know now, the Nokia matter is extremely serious. It's probably true. I just finished dinner with Lu Feng, and he was really worried about you not answering the phone before. I'm on the road now and the signal is not very good. Let's talk about it when we get back." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1056. Latest website. After Sean returned, he called Herman as soon as possible and briefly explained what he knew about the situation. Herman thought about it secretly and felt that it was feasible. Nokia's requirements for sales channels were very consistent. Their current pain points. "Then I will fly to London tomorrow." As for Lu Feng saying that GFN Group's funds are not going to leave and will stay for local investment, I think he is just angry. In any case, he is young and has a normal temper. "Let's meet tomorrow and let's talk." "That'll be fine." Herman pondered for a moment and said, "Let him bring the vice president of Nokia tomorrow." "Me, right?" Sean asked. "Yes. We hope to strengthen technical exchanges with Nokia. At the same time, we adhere to the concept of technology first to cooperate. To put it bluntly, we want technology. If possible, we want Nokia. Wait for 3 years to 5 years. If you can afford it, you can even spend 30 to 5 billion. Herman said it very clearly. Sean hurriedly told him that it was no problem. He had to take his time and there was no need to rush. If he were to buy Nokia directly now, regardless of whether he would sell it or not, even if the price was quoted, it would definitely be a sky-high price. If Siemens wants to bid farewell to international first-tier manufacturers in this regard, it can't even think about it without 10 years and tens of billions of capital investment, so acquisition has become their fastest way. In China, several guests were welcomed into the 3-story office building of Huaxia. Zhang Fengxia's parents were sitting on the sofa in Zhang Xiaoyan's office. A clerk brought a pot of tea and poured a cup for everyone. Zhang Xiaoyan sat on looking at the two people from the opposite side. He said, "Uncle and Aunt, please have a sip of tea." Zhang Fengxia was sitting next to her, holding a folder in her hand, and murmured in a low voice, "I don't know what I'm doing here, I still have a meeting." Just have a meeting and be busy. Time flies by so fast. In the blink of an eye, your hair turns white. Zhang Fengxia's father took a sip of tea and said, "I came to Shenzhen this time for an inspection and study, and by the way, I took your mother for a visit. Just take a look, where is your partner? Should you marry or not? This is my own business. When it comes to falling in love, we don't need to know more about each other." Zhang Fengxia said to the two of them. "Yes, this is not a matter of urgency," Zhang Xiaoyan said helpfully. Zhang Fengxia's mother looked Zhang Xiaoyan up and down and asked, "Finding a woman for your ex-husband is something that a decent girl can't do, right? Do you think we don't know? Who is Lu Feng? He divorced her. What's going on with three of us together with you? Wouldn't it be embarrassing if word spread? Zhang Fengxia and Zhang Xiaoyan were both dumbfounded on the spot. It was obvious that they had already heard something. At this point, there was nothing to say. Zhang Fengxia's father was sitting there smoking a cigarette. He raised his head and glanced at Zhang Fengxia and asked, "Are you and Lu Feng trying to fool the family, or is it true?" Zhang Fengxia sighed helplessly, "I actually don't really want to get married, and my life is pretty good now. Is this a good idea? For such a small factory, my family will let you study abroad and pave the way for you. You can manage such a factory and there is no need to go abroad to study management." Zhang Fengxia's father got angry and looked at his daughter in front of him. He looked like he was going to be 30. Where are the 30-year-old girls now? It's not like I'm studying to manage a big company. I feel very satisfied now. This factory has huge development potential and I started it all by myself. Why can you deny me with such a light sentence? Zhang Fengxia also became angry. He said in a deep voice, "I am already an adult. I know what I am doing and I can take responsibility for what I do. Since you are here to inspect and study, then go and inspect and study. Why do you have so many senses? Are you studying so much just to talk back to me?" Zhang Fengxia's father's voice rose. He stood up and scolded angrily, "Whose daughter is like you? Go to those relatives and friends. Look, people are laughing at me behind my back. If you become the boss of a state-owned enterprise, I won't say anything. What are you doing in a private enterprise? I ask you to go into politics, but if you don't do it, I ask you to go to a state-owned enterprise. If you don't go, let me. Are you getting married or not? What do you want to do?" "I don't want to do anything, I just want to be myself." Zhang Fengxia smashed the folder in her hand on the sofa and stood up, glaring at her father. "No matter what the family arrangements are, you are going to go against me anyway. Let me tell you, Zhang Fengxia, this time your grandfather's comrade in arms is playing matchmaker. His grandson is currently serving as the vice president of a state-owned bank. You'd better go back, old Zhang Fengxia." There was annoyance in Dad's voice. "You two should stop arguing, Fengxia. You are not young anymore. You have to listen to your father this time and find a good family. That's better than anything else," Zhang Fengxia's mother advised. Zhang Xiaoyan sat aside and wanted to say something to her, but as an outsider, it was difficult for her to interrupt. "Impossible, just give up on this idea," Zhang Fengxia said solemnly. "You," Zhang Fengxia's father was so angry that he raised his hand and slapped her across the face. "You can't fight." Zhang Xiaoyan became anxious instantly. She stood up and supported Zhang Fengxia, who fell back. "Why are you beating her? Oh, this child has never been touched by a finger since she was a child. How can you educate her child like this?" Zhang Fengxia's mother cursed, and hurriedly ran to Zhang Fengxia and asked, "Isn't it broken? Does it hurt? Mom, look at it." Zhang Fengxia's face was red from the beating, and her eyes were filled with tears. She pushed her mother away, stood up, and stepped back while enduring the grievance. "You are still protecting her because she spoiled you and relied on her for everything. What would such a big girl do if she didn't get married? She wouldn't do anything she was told to do. In addition to confronting me and pissing me off, there are other things." "Why?" Fengxia's father roared angrily. "I have to rely on you, I have to listen to you. Why should I listen to you in my life? I let you dictate." Zhang Fengxia choked with sobs and shouted to her father, "Because my grandfather was a soldier, I have to join politics, because if you join politics, I have to climb to a higher place. I don't need you to teach me how to live, and I don't want to marry the son of some leader. I will marry whoever I want." "You want to yell at me again?" Fengxia's father was obviously very angry. He pointed his finger at Zhang Fengxia and scolded her, "It's a shameful and conspicuous thing. I tell you, if you do it again, don't recognize me as your father. If you don't admit it, don't admit it. Sister Xiao Yan, don't stop me and let him beat me. Today I let him beat me. If you dare, beat me to death," Zhang Fengxia shouted with tears in her eyes. "Stop talking, you don't know your father's temper," Fengxia's mother persuaded. "I tell you, as long as you are in China, I will tie her up for you when the time comes," Fengxia's father said to his wife after saying, "Stop coaxing her, she is so old, and she is not a 3-year-old child, let her do it by herself. Think about it, let's go, we have a meeting in the afternoon." The old couple left, and Zhang Fengxia sat on the sofa in despair. Zhang Xiaoyan picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. She looked at Zhang Fengxia and persuaded, "Don't take it too seriously. Parents are doing their best for their children. They just think that you're getting older every year. They are not worried about me, Sister Xiaoyan. Didn't you once say that you envied my background? But I'm not much better than you. That's what he is like. He does what he says. If others expect a son to succeed, he will only do it if he doesn't have a son. Envy Chengfeng, I have learned various musical instruments since I was a child, and basically had no childhood fun. When I grew up, I went to study abroad just to avoid him. He thought I should join politics or join a state-owned enterprise. Now these two paths are gone. Hope." Zhang Fengxia picked up the teacup in front of her and took a sip, and said, "Back then, when I just returned to China, he forced me to work in a state-owned enterprise. I went there for a few months and didn't like the environment there, as well as the way those people spoke and their faces. Later, I quietly investigated some factories and met Gao Jiwei. He knew that I was no longer working in a state-owned enterprise, so he had a big quarrel with me when he went back. This is why I like to live at my grandparents' house. I didn't know where to go at that time, and it happened to be Gao Jiwei asked me to go to other places, and I went to Jiafeng for the first time. You know what happened next?" Zhang Xiaoyan sighed after hearing her experiences in the past few years. Every family has its own scriptures that are difficult to recite. I wonder if anyone in this world has an easy life. Why don't you take a break for a while, take a vacation, and have a good chat when you go back?" Zhang Xiaoyan looked at her and said, "The factory's production is now on track. I can do this by myself." Zhang Fengxia was silent for a long time and then said, "I feel like I can't stay in the country any longer. I'll rest for a few days and talk to them. But based on my understanding of him, he really wants to fight me this time. If forced to do so, I will leave." Zhang Xiaoyan felt empty when she heard this. For such a long time, she seemed to have been with her in every aspect of her life, and said, "If you can, try not to leave. If you have decided to leave, I have nothing to say." "I'll try not to leave," Zhang Fengxia looked at her and said. The office fell into silence, and the atmosphere was somewhat depressing. In London, a private plane landed at the airport at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Herman, who got off the plane, was directly picked up by a special car. Half an hour after meeting Sean, Lu Feng received a call from Sean. "I booked a very high-end place to have dinner together tonight. I have a very distinguished friend today," Sean said to Lu Feng on the phone. When Lu Feng heard this, he already had a rough guess in his mind, but he still asked deliberately, "Who is it? I don't like to know people here either, so don't bring them if they are of no use. Don't worry, my job is absolutely reliable. Aren't you worried about Nokia's problem? I tell you, he can solve it. By the way, you bring Almi with you tonight. We have booked a winery tonight." Xiao En ordered Lu Feng, "Leave this matter to me, you don't have to worry about anything. Don't tell me it's Herman. I don't like that person. If it were him, I wouldn't go." Lu Feng repeatedly refused on the phone. "No, don't worry, You still can't believe it, Sean also hurriedly assured. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1057. Latest website. In the evening, a convoy of 3 cars stopped in front of an old castle. The gate was opened, and the vehicles passed through the lush tree-lined paths. The aroma of wine wafted throughout the manor. Almi in the back seat lowered the window and took a deep breath. After taking a breath, he turned around and said to Lu Feng, "The red wine produced by this winery is definitely high-end." "I didn't expect you to understand this," Lu Feng said in surprise. "I was taught at home when I was a child, so I was influenced by it." "Who is this guest this time?" Almi asked very curiously. "Sean introduced me." "You should pay more attention when you speak later. The other party will definitely ask some questions about the headquarters. Just don't expose the secret. Just say that several senior executives on the board of directors have entrusted me with full authority to handle this matter. If the other party doesn't believe it, you can tell me your father called for verification," Lu Feng ordered. "Nothing will go wrong after signing the contract, right?" Almi asked a little worried. "Don't worry, the other party will definitely not notice anything in a short period of time. After discovering something later, you can completely blame all the problems on me. You and your dad can completely say that you don't know each other. As long as it passes through the hands of a third party, it's a confusing account. As for when the incident comes to light, they will seize your products and file a lawsuit in court. They can't produce evidence and can only return the goods." Lu Feng paved the way for her to escape. "This matter cannot pass the review of the risk control department in a large company. It is not easy to find such a victim," Almi worried. "You can rest assured about this. As long as there is enough profit, they will jump even if it is a fire pit." Lu Feng knows the methods of these entrepreneurs very well. Driven by enough profit, they will dare to take any risks. As he was talking, the car had stopped at the door of the villa. Several doormen in suits opened the door and said to Lu Feng, "Dear Mr. Lu, welcome." Lu Feng got out of the car, waited until Almi came over, and walked inside. This slightly quaint villa looked not that old, but inside it was full of carved beams and paintings, and various reliefs from the last century, which seemed a bit overwhelming. "But it looks like a nouveau riche." Before reaching the stairs, Sean walked down from the stairs. He looked very energetic in a suit. He walked towards Lu Feng with a smile and said, "Mr. Lu can come here, this place will definitely be prosperous. This vineyard is the supplier of Lafite. If you can drink the puree today, you must not get drunk and never come home. This is my first time coming to a place like this. I don't know much about red wine," Lu Feng said casually. "Miss Almi, welcome, you are getting more and more beautiful. We invite you upstairs. Guests from far away are already waiting." Sean said a few polite words and walked upstairs. "Now can we tell who the distinguished guest is?" "He's so secretive," Lu Feng asked as he went up the stairs. "It doesn't take much time. You'll find out when you get in." Sean still kept his cool, changed the subject, and started talking about red wine. On the second floor, the waiter opened the door and saw a man sitting on the sofa inside, with his back to Lu Feng. He couldn't see his face clearly, but he felt that the man's back was quite imposing. When Lu Feng saw this figure, he already knew in his heart that it was Herman who was here, and said deliberately, "This friend is quite mysterious, isn't he?" Herman stood up and turned around, looked at Lu Feng with a smile, and said, "Mr. Lu, it's been a long time." Lu Feng saw his face stiffen and put away his smile. Sean clearly felt Lu Feng's unhappiness and hurriedly took Lu Feng's hand and said, "Actually, it's not that big of a deal. Herman is a good person. You may not have had much contact with him and may have had a bit of a misunderstanding, but he also flew to London specially to meet you today." "Misunderstanding?" Lu Feng shook off Sean's hand and stared at Herman. "I called you but couldn't even make an appointment to see you. Last time, I wanted to use Harry/Breeze. I had a few words with you in front of me, but you didn't give me any face, and you tried to kill me when you did it, but now you say you're a good person. Mr. Liu, there is really a misunderstanding between us. After all, I am the CEO of Siemens and I have to do things in the interests of the company. I still admire you very much and have heard your story. A young man like you, there is no second talent in the world. Herman lowered his attitude and said, since we are here today, why not sit down and have a chat? What do you think? Miss Almi. When Ermi came in, Lu Feng quietly told her that if she lost her temper, she would help to persuade her and give her a step down. Don't do this with me. If it works, you will be a friend. If it doesn't, you won't be able to find anyone on the phone, Lu Feng said very irritably. When Herman saw Lu Feng being so disrespectful, he felt a little embarrassed on his face. Sean hurriedly stepped forward to help speak, and Almi also spoke at the side. You're here, anyway. Siemens is also a big company, so for big things, you should put your personal emotions aside first. What do you think? Yes, it's business. It shows that you are sincere when you come here, Sean whispered from the side. You can only order more points and kill him severely. It's useless to talk about it here. After being persuaded by the two, Lu Feng looked much better. He stared at Herman and walked towards the inside. Sean was afraid that Herman would be angry, so he hurriedly stepped forward and said, don't be fussy like young people. It's normal to be a little emotional. Don't worry about it. This is a good thing. I like to discuss business with emotional people. Herman walked inward with an indifferent expression. The service staff inside had been prepared, and the meals had been ordered in advance. As everyone sat down and started serving food, a beautifully dressed beauty walked in and introduced the history of the winery and some knowledge about wine. Lu Feng had no idea at all. Listen. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, the atmosphere at the dinner table began to liven up. Herman was obviously a veteran, and he was very accurate in picking up some topics at the dinner table. From time to time, he would raise a sentence of Lu Feng in his words, and Lu Feng was obviously obvious throughout the dinner table. Now that he has become the protagonist, Sean and Herman compliment him from time to time. Lu Feng also seemed quite proud, lighting up a cigarette and talking about his past events. Come, let me toast you. If we were at the same age and on the same starting line, then you would definitely be someone I look up to. Herman picked up the glass and touched it with Lu Feng, and said, actually, everyone has a personality, and all kinds of people make the world more exciting, which is a good thing, and it doesn't affect us being friends. What's more, we had a good chat tonight. What do you think? I realized that I really misunderstood you before. Not only do you know a lot, you are also extremely loyal. I like people who are loyal. Come on. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass in his hand and drank it all in one gulp. He looks like he has mud legs. Herman drank, put down the glass and said, cooperation between enterprises, or further acquisitions, is an act of helping, just like a person who has some problems and cannot stand still. You need some support, and we at Siemens have been providing this support to many companies. In business, no matter how big a company is, it is normal for a company to have a turnaround. I heard that Nokia needs support recently. He looked at Almi as he said this. Almi drank a lot tonight, and his cheeks were slightly red. He raised his head and looked at Herman and said, it's not a problem of funds, it's a problem of sales channels. Ericsson has put too much pressure on us recently. Nokia and Jiafeng are partners, not to mention the relationship between me and Almi. They entrusted it to me because they believed in my ability. Now Jiafeng has no sales channels, but since I want to take root here, it will be much faster if we can find a few companies to cooperate with. Lu Feng was quite confident, it's just Ericsson. If we overthrow it, wouldn't it be a matter of time? That's right, whatever Mr. Liu wants to do can definitely be accomplished. Sean chatted at the side, picked up the red wine in front of him, poured it for Lu Feng with his own hands, and said, "But after all, this will take time, and we still have to start from Nokia's actual situation. For the sake of profit, not to mention, the problems GFN is facing now are also relatively complex. Because of industry problems, various supervision/litigation/challenging demands, it is better to move the funds out first. I want to move it too. Who makes money and doesn't want to keep it in their pocket?" Lu Feng's voice rose, and his words were full of displeasure. "Who is torturing me?" "Mr. Lu, it's not me who's torturing you, it's Goldman Sachs. We only have a few acquaintances. The home appliance market is not Siemens's core industry, so we won't be so aggressive. I might as well bring it to you today to be clear, it's Lambert." Herman said very directly. "Our appeal is also to further explore the communication field and mobile phone terminals. We are not afraid of anyone, we just want to get what we want." "Of Lambert? Is your grandson still alive?" Lu Feng looked like he had drunk too much. He put one hand on the table and said to Sean next to him, "Back then, the guy next door and me, he wanted to invest in me, but he didn't have enough money, and he asked me to accept it. If I didn't accept it, he would kill me. Where can such a person exist? Isn't this a humming robber? What do you think?" Sean always felt that something was wrong with Lu Feng today, but he blamed it all on drinking. Listening to the translator behind him talking, he quickly said yes. Herman saw that Lu Feng was a little drunk, so he looked directly at Almi and said, "Mr. Lu seems to be a little drunk, why don't we go over there and talk?" "This won't work. My dad left this matter to him." It was also a decision made by several senior executives on the board of directors because he helped a lot in the Chinese market. In addition, it is really difficult to find satisfactory sales channel partners. So the senior management thought of mortgaging some funds and building their own sales channels, Almi said with a smile. When Herman heard this, he finally understood the twists and turns. Nokia executives were interested in the funds in Lu Feng's hands. His funds couldn't be moved out, and were eaten by various forces. It was a big deal to exchange them for Nokia's equity. The one who didn't hit the target was for Lu Feng. Seeing that Lu Feng is so anxious now, he obviously doesn't want to do this deal. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1058. Latest website. Herman seemed to understand Lu Feng's thoughts, and felt more confident. He looked at Lu Feng and said, "I have always felt that Lambert is not good. They are investors. They only see money and have no human touch. Lu sir, what do you think? You finally said something humane." Lu Feng raised his head and looked at Herman and affirmed, "I really feel unhappy with him. When I asked him for a valuation of tens of billions, isn't GFN worth that price? Of course it's worth it, but everyone on Wall Street is like this. They're very domineering. It's normal for me to be beautiful," Sean said to the side. "No. GFN is not worth the price." Herman's words shocked everyone at the dinner table. "You look down on me, don't you? Isn't it worth the price?" Lu Feng was also stunned by him. "GFN is definitely not worth this price, but Mr. Lu is definitely more than this price. With Europe's skills alone, I believe he can create at least hundreds of billions of wealth in the next 10 years." Herman stared at Lu Feng seriously. Road. Everyone at the scene was stunned when they heard this. Sean and Almi could not even dream that a big boss like Herman would flatter Lu Feng in different ways. "You're absolutely right, come on, cheers," Sean reacted and hurriedly picked up the cup. The atmosphere at the dinner table instantly became more harmonious. After a glass of wine, Lu Feng said to Herman, "I have always admired Siemens. My biggest dream is to build a company like Siemens, but I have always admired Siemens. I feel that no matter how big a company is, it cannot be arrogant. Arrogance is the beginning of death, whether it is an individual, a company, or even a country. That's so right, let me drink it. Herman took a sip from the wine glass, then put down the glass and said, the relationship between us and Lambert is just a very simple business relationship. If Mr. Liu doesn't like it, don't worry, it will be cut off immediately. This is not a problem. Really, there was a hint of surprise on Lu Feng's face. He looked at Herman like a reckless man and shouted, I'm just saying this to you. I'm determined to be my friend. You are a cheerful person, and I am also a cheerful person. Let's talk about it now. Can Siemens withdraw from Jia Feng's interception? You can withdraw. I want Nokia's equity, Herman said solemnly. No problem at all. A smile appeared on Lu Feng's face. He stood up with the wine glass and walked to Herman, put an arm around his shoulder, and whispered, I just want to leave. Now a lot of people don't want me to leave, it's not in their interests, so this is a win-win situation for both of us. I mainly want to teach you, a friend like me, that I didn't do well in what I did before. Herman raised his head and looked at Lu Feng and said, now can you tell me how much equity Nokia is willing to give? Seeing that things were going to work, Almi said, 3.9% equity. The ratio of 3.9 is just stuck. According to the regulations of Nokia's board of directors, only those with 4% of the equity can enter the board of directors. Otherwise, it will be circulated in the secondary stock market. Nokia is not listed now. Where is the secondary stock market? Herman frowned a little. With these shares in hand, if he couldn't join the board of directors, he would probably be squeezed out by the major shareholders. Lu Feng obviously saw his worries and whispered, don't worry, if you believe in Nokia with its strength, it will be listed sooner or later, and you will not lose money. If Nokia's business gets worse, it will definitely sell its shares again for a chance, and then it will be your turn to take action. When Herman heard this, he thought for a moment and thought it was right. He nodded in agreement and said, then what do they want? Sales channels, Almi said first. Now Siemens major stores / logistics / wholesale channels / agents are all in great need of Nokia. Which regional sales channels are there? Herman asked. Everything, Lu Feng said for her. Herman was a little hesitant when he heard this. Their sales channels around the world are very large. These sales channels alone are worth a lot of money. In exchange for less than 4% of Nokia's equity, it is not a loss, but it does not account for much. Cheap. No, we have sales terminals covering nearly 2 billion people around the world. With Nokia's current situation, it is impossible to exchange for sales channels in such a large area. Herman thought for a moment and said, if we designate several European countries within the scope, there is no problem with this. Almi was already excited when he heard that things were going to happen. Just when he was about to say it, Lu Feng said first, impossible, absolutely impossible. If it's just a few countries in Europe, even cooperation won't take much money. When Lu Feng said this, he stared at Almi, asking her to calm down and perform the whole act. It is obvious that Herman is lowering the price now. The other party gives a low price that is in mind. If you agree to it, in addition to making the other party feel guilty. In addition, it is of no use at all. The best price must be the price that both parties have to make concessions after the back and forth. I think Miss Almi seems to be very willing, but Mr. Liu is not happy. Herman raised his head and glanced at Lu Feng, who was standing next to him. Of course she is willing. Now she is in charge of the market here. As long as she does a good job, she will get a promotion and a salary increase when she goes back. I am different. I will be responsible for this matter. After reporting it, the other party will weigh the pros and cons. If Siemens cannot satisfy, if their appetite is compromised, then it will be my turn to eat them, Lu Feng said with a smile. How much does Mr. Lu think these shares are worth? Herman asked. The global sales channels are indeed not suitable, but for the whole of Europe and the US market, I think it will be okay, right? And it won't take too long. 2 years of licensing time. I believe that 2 years will be enough for Nokia to get out of the mud. This condition was relatively cost-effective for Herman. He pondered for a while and said, let's do the whole of Europe, and get rid of the American market. No, this will definitely not pass. Lu Feng returned to his seat with the wine glass in hand and started pulling each other. After a lot of back and forth, and even going over the terms of the contract, Sean remained silent. Seeing that the time had reached midnight, and the two parties still had not reached an agreement, Sean said, otherwise, we will decide today. This is a big framework. Let's talk within this framework. Mr. Lu is unwilling to give up on the whole of Europe and the US market. Mr. Herman has objections on the US market. It is useless to continue arguing like this. Everyone's time, it's all quite urgent. Let me say something. Okay, Sean, tell me. Lu Feng looked at Sean and said, I'm more convinced by you. Mr. Lu is not sure about giving up, so write it into the contract. As for Siemens, use time to make up for it and change the authorization from 2 years to 1 year. As for the counterposition / publicity / and other detailed contract terms, here are. How do you feel about chatting within the framework? Sean asked. 1 year's time will not have much impact on Siemens. What Herman fears most is that Nokia will turn around and completely overtake Ericsson with the help of the US market. It should not happen in 1 year. Both sides stopped talking. Lu Feng sat there smoking a cigarette and glanced at Almi next to him. The two looked at each other. Almi had long wanted to agree. Anyway, it was all a lie. It would take Siemens at most half a year. When I think about it, everything is lost. Okay, I'll give Mr. Herman some face. Lu Feng nodded solemnly and agreed, as if he had lost hundreds of millions. Then the teams from both sides will meet tomorrow. I also know that Mr. Lu is quite anxious. As soon as the contract is signed, you can rest assured that the proposal on the new standard for household appliances will be withdrawn immediately, including the foreign exchange bureaus / customs / ministries of finance in other European countries. There will be no more obstruction from multiple departments. Herman mentioned it deliberately, just to scratch Lu Feng again. In his eyes, Lu Feng was now in the net, and he wanted to run away desperately. Lu Feng's face showed a hint of joy. He stood up, shook hands with him, and said, no matter what, I hope you don't get too close to Lambert. This person has a very bad heart. Then let's meet at Nokia headquarters tomorrow, Herman asked. No, don't go to Nokia headquarters. No one from Nokia will come forward in this matter, and you need to sign a confidentiality agreement. I am talking to you as a sole agent. I don't want Siemens to make any noise to the outside world. In the market, any news may bring fatal public opinion to Nokia. Lu Feng stared at him and said seriously, this is also the reason why the price is so low. If it is carried out with great fanfare, I don't think Siemens can compete with those companies in terms of sales channels. Terminal electrical appliances retailer. When Herman heard this, he glanced at Sean. There was no one from Nokia, so who could prove that this was authorized by Nokia? Sean glanced at Almi. As the daughter of the CEO, she shouldn't be so unreliable, right? It is best to have an official team to connect. After all, equity transfer also requires an agreement and a series of changes, Sean said. Now that the equity authorization letter is in my new company, all I need to do is sign another transfer agreement with you. Lu Feng was stunned as he spoke, feeling the gazes of the two people, and said with a smile, you don't think I'm lying to you here, do you? No, Mr. Lu also has a certain reputation around the world, so this matter does not matter. After Sean finished speaking, he looked at Herman and said, as long as the power of attorney and transfer agreement produced by Mr. Lu are okay, Then just sign it. Nokia is not willing to mention this matter. After all, it is a temporary move and plans to repurchase it in the future. Herman naturally murmured in his heart, but the two people in front of him couldn't lie to him for this matter. The daughter of the CEO of Nokia and the CEO worth tens of billions. Coupled with the fact that such an opportunity was so rare, Herman suppressed his doubts and nodded in agreement. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1059. Latest website. The two parties continued to discuss at the dinner table until about 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. Herman also drank a little too much, and it can be said that they talked about all the terms and conditions. It was really late, so I simply stayed in the winery for the night. Sean very wisely opened a room for the two of them. When they returned to the room, Almi closed the door and looked a little excited, saying, "These days. As soon as Tian signs the contract, the matter is settled." "Keep your voice down," Lu Feng scolded her. "This is a suite." Almi hurriedly lowered his voice and walked to the sofa. He said to Lu Feng, "There won't be any big problems later, right? Will something happen to those materials?" "Don't worry. All the materials were prepared some time ago. Everything is complete. Just ask your dad to cooperate a little. There will definitely be no problems in a short time. When they find out the problem, you can blame it on me. Anyway, I won't come back after leaving Europe this time." Lu Feng had obviously thought of everything. With such a large amount of money, Jiafeng Electronics can even poach a semiconductor team and go back. As for being convicted of fraud or something like that, there is nothing wrong with staying in the country, let alone semiconductors pose a certain threat to the Western world. I'm afraid there will be many messy crimes, including this one. Ermai was still immersed in joy. Lu Feng was simply the noble person in her life. He helped her reach the top twice. When she was excited, she couldn't help but rush towards him and hug him. Lu Feng looked a little tired. He grabbed her shoulders with both hands and slowly pushed her away, saying, "I'm tired. Let's go to bed." In the bathroom, the large bathtub was filled with hot water, with a layer of bubbles floating on it. Lu Feng lay in it and felt a little disappointed. A few years ago, he felt that as a time traveler, he did not need much strength to conquer this world, but now he is trying hard not to be overwhelmed by this world. After the formation of the semiconductor industry, it still needs to sell to the outside world in a short period of time. When Jiafeng makes integrated circuits, it is tantamount to offending the whole world. FUZU/the United States/Europe will regard him as a thorn in their side, and may even be sanctioned. Excluded from the entire world. Lu Feng felt a sense of powerlessness when he thought about this. A powerful individual or company would be as fragile as a piece of paper in front of the empire. When you have something you shouldn't have, any crime can make you fall apart in an instant. "It's a sin to possess a jade," Lu Feng muttered to himself. Lu Feng sat up from the bathtub. He didn't want to think so much anymore. He finished the things in front of him first, rinsed himself off, and then entered the bedroom. Almi seemed quite excited and moved closer to him. Lu Feng had already closed his eyes. "I rest." The next day, after 3 strokes, I woke up and made up for last night's joy. I didn't take advantage of it, which was not Lu Feng's style. I went downstairs and had a simple lunch with Sean. Herman had already taken the bus in the morning. The private jet has gone back, and it is estimated that a team from Siemens will come to contact us within 2 days at most. Almi's face was red, and he seemed to be in good spirits. He skillfully cut the steak on the plate with a knife and fork, ate a piece, picked up the wine glass, looked at Sean and said, "I have to thank you very much this time. I respect you 1 cup. That's right. I'm still Mr. Lu's subordinate anyway. Besides, we all know each other now. If you need anything in the future, just come to me." Sean said a few polite words, looked at Lu Feng and said, "This time is Mr. Lu leaving?" "I will leave, but Jia Feng will not leave," Lu Feng replied. Sean raised his eyebrows slightly, obviously not believing this at all. This was Lu Feng's only chance to escape, and Sean's feeling told him that something was not right about this matter. Not only him, but also Herman this morning talking to Sean, I felt like something was not right. So I called Almi's father. The other person on the phone just said that these things were internal matters, vaguely proving the authenticity of the matter. Herman was not a vegetarian, so he mentioned the conversation as the entire content was recorded with a voice recorder. Sean knew the Jiafeng company quite well through Kevin. He just wanted to be the technological heart of the East, but Sean also understood that such sophisticated things and core technologies could never be owned by a weak country, let alone a company. The company can survive. Lu Feng went back with the money. If there was a problem with the contract this time, he would really have no way out. What's more, Lu Feng didn't leave any way for himself here, and started selling sales courses. This was no longer cutting leaks, but even digging out the roots. There was no way to clean up the mess behind. Sean lit up a cigar and took a sip, looking at Lu Feng with some emotion. Who was not passionate when he was young, but he was frustrated by reality halfway and fell into the embrace of money. "May all your wishes come true." Sean held up his wine glass and raised his hand slightly toward Lu Feng. "I will be responsible for the consulting services between you this time. Remember to contact me if you have any work in the future." "Don't worry, it's absolutely fine." Lu Feng clinked glasses with him. After drinking and eating, everyone walked out of the villa. The sun was shining brightly outside, sparrows were flying in groups, and the chirping of birds was endless. Sean learned a month ago that a semiconductor exhibition was going to be held in Paris, and a friend gave him he received an invitation letter, and such an exhibition was of little use to him. But for Lu Feng, there might be something gained. Looking at Lu Feng, he felt a little hesitant. What's wrong? Lu Feng sensed that something was wrong with this old man. Sean took a deep breath and whispered to the translator next to him, "Tell him in a low voice that there will be a semiconductor expo in Paris in half a month. I have an invitation letter. Can he go?" The translator was stunned for a moment, then walked up to Lu Feng and whispered in Lu Feng's ear. Almi stood aside, puzzled, and listened with all his ears, but heard nothing. Lu Feng's eyes lit up when he heard the news. He looked at Sean and said, "Really? Thank you very much. I'll have someone send it to you later. It has my name on it. You can go and spend some money to get it done." Many black reporters do this. After Sean finished speaking, he added, "This is a road of no return. As you live, you can't always worry about money. When you have eaten and drank enough, you want to straighten your back. You have to do something, otherwise you will feel irritated." Lu Feng smiled as he spoke and patted Sean on the shoulder. He said, "You, a citizen living in a developed country, will not understand me, a resident of the third world. Okay, that's all. Thank you." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he patted Sean's shoulder heavily as a farewell. Although this old boy didn't know how many things he had done behind his back and how much money he had earned, at this moment Lu Feng felt that he understood him, and also they are considered close friends. On the way back, Almi looked at Lu Feng from time to time and asked, "What did he tell you? Are you so happy? What can he say as an old pervert?" "He just said that you have a good figure and I was so happy last night," Lu Feng joked casually. Almi smiled. She knew that was not what she was talking about, so she stopped asking. However, she secretly told herself that during this period, she should pay close attention to every aspect of signing the agreement to prevent Lu Feng and Sean from doing anything in it. What hands and feet? The car first sent Almi to the Nokia branch, and then took Lu Feng back to the headquarters. After going downstairs, Lu Feng looked at the company building before going up. The current Jiafeng branch had no management value. After returning to his residence, Lu Feng called manager Li and told him that starting from today, the company will strictly control various assessments and management. After saying these words, he hung up the phone and lay on the bed. The next day, the team leader contacted Lu Feng. This matter was completely handled by the newly established company. On the same day, Lu Feng showed them the relevant authorization contract and a series of certificates, plus Almi was by my side throughout the entire process, and the progress was quite smooth. The entire procedure would take 10 days at the earliest. During this period, Lu Feng held 2 meetings with manager Li, requesting that the company's entire assets be liquidated and what could be liquidated as much as possible. At the same time, he notified other branches to make corresponding preparations, and this matter can only be known to a few people at the top and must not be leaked. Everything was going in the right direction. 3 days later, there was an invitation on Lu Feng's desk with Sean's name on it. In China, Zhang Fengzi arrested for a few days, stayed alone in a rented house, and called her parents several times. Her mother tried to persuade her, hoping that she would at least choose a path arranged by her family instead of living in a small school now. Spend your youth in a broken factory. Dad has long lost confidence in Zhang Fengzi, especially the children of his friends who are trying to climb up. Only his daughter is going to die. Her attitude on the phone is very tough. Either listen to her family or leave. Go home, no more. Zhang Fengzi felt exhausted mentally and physically. She didn't want to choose either option, but she had no choice. She cried at home for several days. She didn't want to answer the phone anymore, so she went to Zhang Xiaoyan's house to stay with Duo. Don't cry. You are already an adult. You have to be strong. Duo looked at Zhang Fengzi and persuaded, your parents don't want you, so you don't want them either. No one will care. How happy are you? Go away and do your homework. You have no father or mother, Zhang Fengzi scolded while sobbing. Look at your temper. I'm your parent, and I don't want you either. Duo turned around and muttered. A few minutes later, the sound of Duo being beaten could be heard in the room. She stood there with red eyes and covering her buttocks, choking and saying, if you are unhappy, even I am unhappy too. Why are you such a person? Lao Wu. Zhang Fengzi spanked Duo, took a deep breath and felt better. She stood up and went back to the house to lie down. She seemed to understand that it wasn't all Duo's fault that Zhang Xiaoyan sometimes spanked her. Latest website.